Our first guest speaker for today is the one and only Marjorie Rosenberg. Okay. Hopefully you have had a chance to read her bio, which is in the bulletin. She teaches at the University of Graz. She's a material writer, prolific material writer, I'd say, especially of business for business English, material for business English. And her latest book, methodology book, Spotlight on Learning Styles, which was just published, has been a valuable addition to my library. It's, to say the least, enlightening. Okay. But she's also a very active person when it comes to teacher associations. At the moment, after being a coordinator for the BSIG, Special Interest Group for TESOL, she's currently the vice president, and she was going to take on the presidency at the annual TESOL conference in April. Okay. But for me, I met her last week, and for me, she's one of the most sweetest and considerate people I know. Marjorie? She's going to deliver the talk, Getting Unstuck, Stretching Out of Our Comfort Zones. And while we're preparing,
they can't. Okay. Because then I've got several things in my hands, and I would like to be able to look at my notes so I don't forget anything important. I'm really thrilled to be here and doing this plenary. I was asked to do this in Frankfurt last year and began some crowdsourcing, and I have to say that a number of the people who contributed ideas to this are actually in this room, which is just wonderful, which you will soon see. So, some of us may be new to the profession, and others have been teaching for a long time. But I think one aspect that we all can agree on is that we often get stuck in our own little worlds. We often don't see outside our classrooms. Our classrooms become the walls around us. We see our students. I have days where I never see another person except my students. Is that true for anyone? Yes. It may not be true if you have a staff room, but if you're a freelancer, I would go to a room, teach, and leave. And the next person's waiting to come in, and they might even be from a different faculty at the particular university I teach at, because I teach for the language department, and we don't have our own building. Well, we do, but there's only 2 classrooms. So we teach all over the university. And I think this is something that many of us find intimidating, daunting, and perhaps a little frustrating. So first I'd like to find out about you. How long have you been teaching? Who's been teaching 1 to 5 years? Anyone here? Can we take a look and see and give them a welcome to the profession? Thank you for joining it. 6 to 15 years, hands? Okay. Next one, 16 to 30. Wow. Okay, now we get to the really tricky one. 31 plus. And although I'm in that group, I have to say, You're all very brave. We've been doing this for a long time, and we are still here, still working, still active, and still smiling, and still alive. Okay. How often do you actually do something new? Once a month? Twice a month? Okay. Afraid I'm going to hit the wrong button. Once a week? Okay. Twice a week? Every day? Does anyone do something new every day? Fantastic. Well, then you might not get so much from this plenary because this is about how to do new things. Okay. So for those who don't often try new things out, there may be a number of reasons why you don't. Let's have a look. Do you feel stuck? Do you feel like you're in a rut? And do you have any ideas to get out of it? I mean, do you feel like you're stuck in this mud, if you can make that out, that's mud? Yeah, some of you do. Okay. I'd like you just to chat with a neighbor for about a minute on ideas of how to get out of that feeling of being stuck. Just chat for a minute. Can you give me that yellow folder? The yellow folder. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I think we'll go on. Does anyone have an idea they would like to share? Okay, we're going to go on. I have a bell. Does anyone have an idea they would like to share with us? Do you want to share an idea how to get out of this rut? Did someone want to share something? Yes. So there's Christina's the solution. Wonderful. And? Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Pinterest. Yes. One more. Great. Yes. Very good. Very good. Well, let's have a look. Does this seem familiar to anyone? Do our days seem like they repeat over and over again? Yeah. I'm sure we all know what that's like. And what actually keeps us from trying new ideas? While I was working on this, I did some crowdsourcing, and I was working at the moment in a TESOL Evo. This is the Electronic Village online course, totally new for me, teaching online. And I was able to do a lot of crowdsourcing. I also use Facebook. And this is what people said. Do these look familiar to you? Would you agree that these are part of the problems? Yes. All of them. We're afraid to try. We're afraid we will make a mistake. We feel we don't have the money. We don't have the time. We don't have the support. Well, we're going to take a look at some of the things you can do, even with these problems that might come up. The other thing I did, I thought if we're going to look at how we get out of our routines, we need to see who we are. And this came from colleagues as well. I'd like you to take a look at this and see if there's anything you would add to this list. Is there anything else that we, as teachers, are? Just shout it out. Spiritual parent. Okay, one thing I do avoid with my students is becoming a parent to them, but a spiritual parent is something else. Yes? Anyone else? A role model. Excellent. Did I forget that? Ooh, yes, I did. Okay, anything else? Somebody who inspires you, inspirational, excellent. An adult friend. Okay, I didn't think of that because I teach adults. And university students. We have to decide where they belong, but at least more or less they are adults, yes. Okay. And another aspect of our worlds. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Can you all read it? Code Finder, yes. Unfortunately, some of these become very true. Form filler. Many of them. At least at university level, some of them have fallen by the wayside, luckily. But I think we encompass many, many roles in our everyday lives. So have you ever asked yourself, what can we do about this? How can we get out of this routine? How can we move on for ourselves? And, of course, when we help ourselves, who else are we helping? Our learners, always. There are many ways to get there. One might be on a superhighway. Another could be on a country road. We may find, if you can see the picture, I think they are, not sure, cows. We might have barriers in our way. And one of my favorite, there may be two ways to get to exactly the same destination. Can you see it? And it may not matter which road we take, because we'll come to the same place anyway in the end. So in thinking about this, I thought it was important to look at the areas that we can expand into. So let's have a look. This is what I came up with. We've got new methods we can try out. We can teach new subjects. We can try new technology. We can take part in continual or continuing professional development, which you all know about because you're all here. We can stretch out of our learning styles, which is basically where this whole idea of this plenary started. We can work with colleagues, use our colleagues for ideas, for sounding boards. We can set up a PLN. How many know what a PLN is? Personal Learning Network, and we're going to go into that. And we can go into a new area of ELT, also important. Now, in crowdsourcing this, as I said, I put questions on Facebook, and I got global contributors. If anyone sees their picture there, can you raise your hand? We've got Christine, yes. And I have another page. Anyone else? And Dora, yes. All together, just checking here how many I had. It was 22 colleagues from 20 different countries who came up with ideas. So what we're going to do is to take a quick look at the things that people sent me, organized into the different areas, so that you can see what people around the world are actually doing to get out of their routines. And I'm not going to read everything to you, it's very clear, but you will get an idea of what is out there. So new methods. I thought this was an interesting photo of different types of dice. I've never seen these before. Has anyone seen these? Yes, okay. Can anyone read them? I'm assuming it's Russian. Is that right? Yeah, okay. This was from Sandy Millen, who was learning Russian at that time in Sevastopol. So this was an interesting one from Samira in Algeria, using an excerpt from the Merchant of Venice as a riddle. A totally new idea, something I have never thought of doing. Okay. Gabriella had the idea of letting her students come up with the revision material. Has anyone done this? I do it with mine. I tell them to write exam questions. I tell them what type of questions are coming on the exam and tell them to look through the material and write questions for other students. Why should I do all the revision work? And if they do it, they actually look at the material, which is something that can be done and is very useful. Using unplugged teaching with drama. Has anyone tried this one? So letting the content come from the group and then using it in drama techniques. Wonderful idea. I will make the slides available so you don't need to make loads of notes if you think this is something I have to try. This was an interesting one, and you can ask Christina about this, using TPR with adult learners, and they liked it. They loved it. That's great. I used to do things like head and shoulders and knees and toes with bankers after a long day. They loved it. Loved it. Or musical chairs with government officials, where they had the best time because it was different. And when the blood gets flowing and oxygen comes to the brain, they're actually ready to learn. And they thought it was wonderful. Never had a criticism of it. But you do have to believe in it yourself. If you're a little bit uncomfortable about it, don't try it, because they know. So new subjects. Can you see what's going on in this picture? It's a turkey being stuffed. And the reason I chose this was I used to teach nutrition students, and we would do all of the vocabulary in English, and then I would cook with them in English using English recipes. Fascinating way to work with a group where two things. One thing, they were learning to do it in English. The other was they could teach me because they were the cooks. They were excellent. So they would explain, no, you do it this way. So it gave them this feeling of power and equality, and the learning became a two-way street. It was a beautiful experience. So Sue Annan, who many of you know from our PLN, she gets new groups all the time, and her last sentence, I think, is the best. You agree? So different groups, rugby players, ferry drivers, but if you look interested, it all turns out okay. I think it's wonderful. Emma in Israel, who started teaching online with a group of Iraqi students, and she said it was just an amazing experience. It was new for her, and this bond that developed between them, she said, was just incredible. And it was going on last summer, and it continued, and she said it has just been the most enlightening experience, not only for the subject matter, but also the human approach to this, and the way they got to know each other as people. So breaking down barriers, wonderful. And going to new technology, which is probably my weakest area. Using Prezi. Does anyone use Prezi? The presentation online? Okay. Vocaroo and Mentor Mob. Vocaroo, I did look it up because I didn't know it. It's about, recording voice, and Mentor Mob is making playlists, I believe, of materials, yes. And Elena is wonderful. She's giving a webinar soon on, I think it's on presentation techniques online. It's coming, I think, next weekend, an IATEFL BASIC webinar. Bit strips. Anyone use bit strips? I found that interesting that it came from Samira. Very interesting. And PB Works. Does anyone use wikis? Some. Okay. And Sergio, who's a real digital native, does loads and loads of things. Downloading apps, pronunciation apps. That's interesting. Has anyone used those? Okay. CPD, why did I choose this picture? Aside from it being from ELT Pics. It's a conference. And that's exactly what we do. We go to conferences, yes. So Sue doing lots and lots. This I'm going to go through fairly quickly because it's what people have done to keep up their, or to continue with their development. Doing lots online. Does anyone follow Sandy? Yeah. Very active blogger, and she's I think one of the most adventurous people I know, except maybe for Ken. Dana, who won a scholarship to IATEFL last year through IATEFL BASIC, has started doing a leadership course and an online course on teaching children with hearing impairments. Whole new area. Hannah, who said she started tweeting. Yes, some of you know Hannah. Tweeting, blogging, and so on, and hopes a lot is ahead of her, which is a wonderful way to think of it. Philip in Hungary, I think he actually finished the MA doing MOOCs, so these online courses, blogging, and so on. Omid in Iran did a TKT course and trained the trainer course and has been getting together with people and reflecting on it and so on. So setting up a real network here of people involved in teacher training. Sylvia in Uruguay doing an MA in Manchester, and Richard in Thailand also doing did an MA doing a Delta or did a Delta and taking part in MOOCs. Maine in Armenia, also a CELTA, and Sergio an MA. I think some of you may have seen his graduation pictures on Facebook. He posted them, yes. Okay, stretching out of the learning style. I took this photo because this is a science park to teach children science in a more global way. Scientists are usually very analytic. My brother's a scientist. They have certain ways of doing things, and they sometimes don't see the whole picture. They're very into the details. And this is a kinesthetic, holistic way of teaching children science. So it would stretch someone out of their comfort zone. And Alexandra said that she started doing more kinesthetic activities. And this was not her style. For those of us who are not terribly kinesthetic, it can be quite frightening to do something that is kinesthetic because we're afraid we'll make a mistake. Or Dana learning to use her auditory style. And Tanya, who's the editor of the IATEFL conference selections, said she's had to learn to be more hands-on, even though she's a very visual learner. Colleagues. A very important part of my work has been what I have learned from colleagues. Any of you who come to the business talk I'm giving tomorrow will see a drawing that someone handed me once, I think in the hallway after a class, and said, "This is great," and that must have been some 20 years ago, and I'm still using it. So our colleagues are wonderful sources of information, of resources, and support. And I thought this was interesting. that Antonio is training colleagues how to do concept questions. This was one of the ELT chat topics, I think, a while ago. And Sergio helping his colleagues learn English. Does anyone teach English to colleagues? No one's done this. I've done lots of teacher training where I have had English in CLIL settings, so teaching English to math teachers and geography teachers and so on. And that's all part of that. And that's a wonderful thing because you are really exchanging ideas, and I learn subjects that I know nothing about. Helen Bicknell, I don't know if any of you know Helen. She's one of the most active people I know, aside from a few in this room. She invites colleagues over. She gives them feedback. She does business breakfast. She invites colleagues to watch her teach, and she is the head of her institute. I think this is amazing. She arranges group events, and she says, and I agree, the best thing about this profession is all the nice people you get to meet. And I would absolutely agree that that is true. Okay, the Personal Learning Network. This was put together by Rosalie Serra in Brazil, and I sent her an email. Oh, Rosalie, I need this for my presentation. It was just perfect timing. And I think you may recognize some people in this. Who do you see? Dimitris? Vicky Loras? Marissa? Anyone else? Damien? And this is so wonderful. This is what has made my entire outlook on the profession change enormously. So Omid continuing with the people that he's been working with and now taking on some other things, and people who ask him questions on translation, for example, and so on. Sergio, social networks. Tanya, who traveled from Canada to London for the first MOSIC event, the writing SIG of IATEFL, for one day. That's impressive. And she said she'd go to more if she lived in Europe. Okay, a new area of ELT. Does anyone know why I chose this? Can you read it? Can anyone read the original? It must be Russian and Ukrainian? Okay. Should I read it out? Can you read it? Dear colleagues and guests, please do not throw paper, rubbish, hygienic packages into the lavatory pan. Okay, why did I choose this? New area of ELT. Okay, I've noticed these translations around the city I live in, and sometimes I've actually gone into the place and said, I think you might need someone to correct the translation, and I can offer my services. And I actually got a job not only translating, but also speaking the announcements for the Graz public transport system. So now visitors to Graz hear me saying, Main Square, Congress Center, change here for tram lines 4 and 5, because the original translations were so awful. So you never know. If you contact the right person, you might wind up with a very interesting job. And we got all my friends involved because we wanted to make it international, not British, not American. Very interesting coming up with vocabulary for all of this. So people who have become doses, we have several, are starting to use things like Skype, Google+, and Hangout. Yeah? Okay. Again, dose, professional translator, someone we know. Blogging, webinars, working on a new CLIL event, or no, a CLIL project to do with movement. Yes. Another one who's a dose, writing. Also more writing, people who are taking a chance, writing for a newsletter, those who have never done this. It's something that can definitely take you into a new area. And Helen, who has boundless energy, loads of things. I think my favorite here is the English kindergarten, It's in there somewhere. Yes. Private kindergarten, university summer program, MBA program. But she hasn't blogged or tweeted yet. I don't know if she'll find the time with everything else she does. Richard's starting a new program for learners in Southeast Asia, being a tutor on courses, starting to blog, exchange students. Tanya working on a book. This I find very brave, something Ken will relate to, I think. Writing a fiction book for ELT learners. Has anyone done that? I've got one that's sort of ruminating around in my mind, but haven't gotten started on it yet. Are you working on one? You might. Okay. And Vicki Hollett, who has been one of my heroes since I began teaching business English, because she made business English interesting. And Vicki has started her own little video production company. Okay, in order to think about this, I don't want to stand here and give advice and say, you could do this, you could do that. I went back and I made myself a timeline. Just checking time. And I thought, what have I done since I started teaching? And realized that I did take on new things at various times. And I came to Austria actually as a singer looking for a job. And teaching was a day job. Then I went on to do an a diploma in adult education. I had teaching experience in the States, but it was in music. And began NLP training. Anyone know what this is? Neurolinguistic programming, which has been one of the most important things I have done in my career, and I still use today in many, many aspects of teaching. It's been a very helpful thing to have learned. First conference presentation was 21 years ago, and I still remember this, in a huge auditorium with one of these lecture halls where, you know, that people are sitting up at the top, and I had come prepared to do a workshop with a stuffed animal to throw around, and thought, okay, we're still going to do it. Taking that first leap, and people saying, are you sure you want to do this? I said, why not? There are scarier things out there to do. So you just have to jump in and try. And I had to go back to think. I think the scariest thing I ever did was when I was in the States, because I was a singer and I worked in advertising. I sang the U.S. national anthem on TV for 4 baseball games. The first time there were only 3,000 there. The last time there were 60,000. So I thought, okay, if I can sing the national anthem in front of 60,000, I can give a conference presentation. And there, you can't have your notes. And the worst thing is the people that say to you, oh, I hope you don't forget the words. Gee, thanks for putting that thought in my head. Hadn't occurred to me before then. So there's always going to be somebody who's going to somehow make it seem like it's more difficult than it is, but you just have to go ahead and try it. An interesting one here was becoming, where is it? 2009, I became a Cambridge oral examiner. And it was me and a colleague my age and a very young colleague. And she said to us when we came in, why are you doing this? You're both so old. And we just kind of ignored it. And then, I don't, how many are Cambridge examiners? Okay. At that very first session, you are observed reading the questions or doing the exam with some students. And she and I both passed, and the other colleague didn't. Maybe having more experience was not such a bad idea or a bad thing to have. Yeah. There's never a reason not to try something. And then becoming coordinator of IATEFL BSIC, joining the membership committee, and now the new IATEFL job. These are things that just keep you going. And why not? Why not keep trying? So this is something you could go home and try to see what you've already accomplished. You might be very surprised when you make your own timeline. Is anyone going to try this at home? timeline? Yeah. Be interesting to hear. Okay, so what's out there? Let's take a look. Writing supplementary materials, editing, blogging, writing curriculum, testing, teaching associations, which many of you know about, doing teacher training, technology, internet, colleagues, PLN, translating. Is anyone doing any of these? Yes, I'm sure many of you are doing them. Are there any you have not yet done that you think you might try? Anybody? Yeah, which one? Georgia, is there something you're going to try? More blogging, okay? Anyone else? Yeah, I didn't start blogging till last year. In February, I got my blog set up and I started writing, I think, in March or April. Anyone else? Something you're going to try? I didn't put writing fiction. That'll be the next one. Okay. So, my first experience with the PLN was the wonderful ELT chat. How many of you take part in this or know about it? You know about it. Okay, not everyone here. That's interesting. I was afraid everyone would know everything in the plenary because so many of the ideas, like many ideas in our Western civilization, started here in Greece. The ELT chat meets once a week, either in Greek time it must be at 2 p.m. and at 11 p.m. Yeah, late. But the 2 p.m. one might work. And a topic topics are suggested, they're voted for, and then we chat on Twitter. And here are some of the recent topics. They really range from linguistic questions, methodology questions, teacher development questions, and so on. I will make the slides available to you guys. And I started this. I got my first smartphone about 3 years ago, and I was in Greece, in Palikastro, in Crete, and was lucky to find two wonderful Italian electronic engineers with perfect English who were thrilled to teach me how to use my phone. And on that trip, all of the tavernas have got Wi-Fi, all of them, so I'd go for lunch and discovered the ELT chat was going on. So I was sitting there in this beautiful setting overlooking the sea and tweeting with colleagues. I thought, this is so cool. This is the way to go. If you haven't tried it, try it out. Go to their website and have a look. And one of my absolute favorite sites, as you will see throughout my presentations, is the ELT Pix. How many of you know the ELT Pix? Not everyone in this room? Okay, well now you do. How many of you use ELT Pix? Okay. They are Creative Commons, collection of photos. I was thrilled to be the 20,000th photo. And when you go on Facebook, you will see what I shared. I don't want to reveal it. I can tell you it was something that popped up on my feed that was something I posted exactly a year ago. And this has been wonderful. I also posted loads from Palikastro. But what's so wonderful is it's all organized into categories that you can use as a teacher. And you can use them in the classroom. You can use them in presentations. And I always find what I'm looking for. They're just great. How many photos are on the site now? 22,000? 25,000 photos. And all wonderfully organized by people like Julie. Wonderful. So taking a look at some examples. If you can see these, every picture tells a story. The what is it you can do with students where there's a bit of a picture and then the whole thing, and then adjectives. This is one of mine from New York. Peaceful, the middle of Central Park. But they are organized in wonderful categories. Try them out. And another very important website that started here in Thessaloniki. How many of you know the Disabled Access Friendly? I hope everyone, almost everyone. I first heard about them when I came back from Harrogate, from the IATEFL conference, and wrote up a lesson plan, actually for Cambridge, on businesses being barrier-free and why this was important. And we sent it on, and they said they liked it and wanted to print it, and I was thrilled. And since then, I've taken part in the competition, and it is an absolutely valuable, wonderful site. So this is what it looks like. It goes from A1 up to C2. How many in this room have actually written for it? Okay. And if you haven't, you can contribute a lesson plan. And that's an example. So you have the level, the age, the topic, the grammar, and then there's a combination of texts and videos and vocabulary work and discussion questions. Absolutely wonderful for raising awareness of it for students of mobility disabilities. Absolutely great site. When I would get my evaluations back from my students, my lowest mark, I always got great marks on, she's friendly, she's fair, funny, whatever. But what I always got bad grades on was use of technology. Because I didn't come and show them films in the classroom, which some colleagues did. I didn't use PowerPoint very often. At our university, we can either use the whiteboard or the screen. Sometimes the computers don't work. They don't recognize your USB stick. I just gave up. Then I discovered Vicki Hollett's videos. And we use Moodle, so I can give my students the link to watch at home, and then we discuss it in class. And the videos are organized in categories as well. They're mostly about problems in learning English. And another wonderful thing is Vicki is British and her husband Jay is American. So you get both accents. So I'm going to ask Nick to come help me. And as you see what Vicki says, we're in the business of teaching meanings. Meanings don't just come from words. They come from context. Video is the natural medium for delivering context. Why is anyone still trying to teach with just audio? Now, I don't know how it is in Greece. In Austria, there's one word for borrow and lend. They are the same. There's actually a second word, but no one uses it. So my students always say, "Can you borrow me your pencil?" Yeah. So this was one of the first videos that I show them. We're going to take a look at the video.
It's raining. Can I borrow an umbrella?
Sure, here you are.
Thanks. Can I borrow your car?
Sure.
Thanks.
In many languages, there's just one verb for this action. But in English, there are two, lend and borrow. Oh, can you lend me your glasses?
What?
Can I borrow your glasses?
Sure.
Thank you. Yay. Lending is like giving and borrowing is like taking. And they're temporary activities. Oh, well, give me your number. Give me your pen.
I need it.
Just for a moment.
You'll give it back.
I just want to borrow it. Sorry, what was that? So lending, giving temporarily, and borrowing, taking temporarily. Borrow is a regular verb. Borrow, borrowed, borrowed. Lend is an irregular verb. Lend, lent, lent. Did I lend either of you my iPod?
No.
I can't remember who I lent it to. Banks lend people money, and the money they borrow is a loan. How much does the truck cost?
$100,000.
$100,000?
We'll have to borrow the money from the bank.
That's right. I've already spoken to them.
They'll lend us that much money?
Yes.
How soon will they give us the loan?
How are we going to pay it back?
Well, we could cut one of our staff.
So when we borrow money, we have to return it, pay it back.
Here's that $50 I borrowed.
Oh, actually you owe me 55.
I thought you lent me 50.
$5 interest.
Huh?
So interest is the money we have to pay for borrowing money. And sometimes we need to leave security for a loan.
And finally, this news from New York's Bank of Southern Manhattan. Last week, a British woman asked to borrow just $20 and offered to leave her $300,000 Rolls-Royce as security. The bank manager took the car and lent her the money. Today, she repaid the loan and drove off in her Rolls. We asked her why she'd leave her expensive car as security for just a $20 loan.
Well, how else could I find parking in New York for a week for only $20?
So, can you use this kind of thing with your students? Yeah. I give them the link. There are also, for a number of them, there are worksheets in PDFs, and I give them the link and the worksheet, and they do them, and they love them. They ask for more and more. One of the few times students actually ask for more work. So it's been very successful. And we actually have the founder of this here, Dora, which is wonderful. Do you want to stand up? No? Okay. This was so inspiring. When I saw this wonderful Facebook page trying something new, I thought this is perfect for this plenary. How many of you know this Facebook page? Okay, well, I think you're going to get a lot more followers after this plenary because it's a wonderful place to share ideas. Someone who does something and then shares the idea with someone else or asks a question. Does anyone have an idea of how I can do this? And on this page is a phenomenal short video, which is the inspiration for the rest of the conference, I think. We're going to take a look at this. Some of you may know this, but I can watch this over and over again.
So I decided to follow in the footsteps of the great American philosopher, Morgan Spurlock, and try something new for 30 days. The idea is actually pretty simple. Think about something you've always wanted to add to your life and try it for the next 30 days. It turns out 30 days is just about the right amount of time to add a new habit or subtract a habit, like watching the news, from your life. There's a few things that I learned while doing these 30-day challenges. The first was, instead of the months flying by forgotten, the time was much more memorable. This was part of a challenge I did to take a picture every day for a month. And I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing that day. I also noticed that as I started to do more and harder 30-day challenges, my self-confidence grew. I went from desk-dwelling computer nerd to the kind of guy who bikes to work for fun. Even last year, I ended up hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa. I would never have been that adventurous before I started my 30-day challenges. I also figured out that if you really want something badly enough, you can do anything for 30 days. Have you ever wanted to write a novel? Every November, tens of thousands of people try to write their own 50,000-word novel from scratch in 30 days. It turns out, all you have to do is write 1,667 words a day for a month. So I did. By the way, the secret is not to go to sleep until you've written your words for the day. You might be sleep deprived, but you'll finish your novel. Now, is my book the next great American novel? No, I wrote it in a month. It's awful. But for the rest of my life, if I meet John Hodgman at a TED party, I don't have to say, I'm a computer scientist. No. If I want to, I can say, I'm a novelist. So here's one last thing I'd like to mention. I learned that when I made small, sustainable changes, things I could keep doing, they were more likely to stick. There's nothing wrong with big, crazy challenges. In fact, they're a ton of fun, but they're less likely to stick. When I gave up sugar for 30 days, day 31 looked like this. So here's my question to you. What are you waiting for? I guarantee you the next 30 days are going to pass whether you like it or not. So why not think about something you have always wanted to try and give it a shot for the next 30 days? Thanks.
So, something new you can try are TED Talks with your students. Does anyone use TED Talks? I have a CAE prep course, a C1 course, and they needed to, because the university makes us teach 14 lessons even if there are only 13 available days. So we have to find something to fill the 14th day. And I had just come back from IATEFL, and I thought, Sugatra Mitra, I had them watch the TED Talk, and then in class we had a debate on his theories of teaching kids without a teacher and the whole granny cloud and all of this stuff that went on. Those who don't know what I'm talking about, I have to explain. He was a plenary speaker at IATEFL with some very revolutionary ideas. One is that we don't need teachers. And I had a number of students studying pedagogy, and they had to debate it. And we did a webinar with him at that time where he answered questions about his talk at IATEFL, and they were able to log into that as well. But they started by watching the TED Talk. And these were advanced students. They found it very interesting. They really loved it. But TED Talks vary in length, so you can show this one, it's 3 minutes. Or a longer one, depending on the length. And they are really wonderful to use with students. So one thing that I learned when I started NLP is if you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always gotten. And what that means is unless we change ourselves and what we do, the rest of the world gives us back what they've always given us. So when we change, even a small change, as Matt Coates says, a tiny thing that we start to do can change the way we are received. And I have seen this so many times. Colleagues who are unhappy in their jobs become more unhappy. Colleagues who are happy in their jobs become happier. I have found that even after all the years of teaching, I look forward to going in and working with university students. It's fun. I look forward to working with my corporate clients. I look forward to my lessons. And there was a time when I thought, oh, this is drudgery. And when I changed that feeling, everything changed. And people say, but you could stop working now. I said, well, I could. Why should I? It's a gift that we have as teachers that we can continue for many years. And we can do it, we can cut back a little bit, but we can still work with these wonderful people we work with. And I think this is something we may all need to think about. Maybe go up the slide rather than down the slide at some point. So a bit of reflection. Does anyone want to volunteer anything they are going to try out? Dora. Wow, fantastic. So you've already planned to do that. But you're going to now. Okay, great. Anyone else? Did you have your hand up, Ken? No. No. Anyone else? Andrew. wonderful. I don't know if you could all hear this and for the live stream, to start a blog sharing stories. Oh, it's wonderful. Absolutely. Because blogs link to other blogs. I just did a blog challenge that was started by Joanna, who's from Crete, on what we would tell our former selves. And it's a wonderfully reflective exercise to go back and think through your career and what would you have done differently or told yourself. And they're linked. So starting a blog on stories being linked, fantastic. Anyone else? Wonderful. So mentoring students, there's something we can do. Okay, I think this includes the first step. Anyone else? So something to think about, and what I would love to do after this conference is to post this challenge and to have people contact me. I'll make my email address available, and then we can do an article for the newsletter on what new steps people have taken since this conference. Is that an idea? Wonderful. Okay. So, does anyone have any questions? I'm here for the whole conference. You can catch me in the break. I've got a few other presentations. Okay. A little flower for you from Shelley Terrell. Thank you. And importantly, the acknowledgments. I hope I did it right, Julie. Thank you all for your attention, and I'm delighted to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking to everyone later. Thank you.